Oh, take this one. Go and turn that lamp on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
Good.
Good.
Kenneth's got his thumb up. He's ready to go. It's good to see you all. I'll tell you what, this is the most exciting thing. And I see Eric's with us again. Everybody congratulate Eric. Got a director job. Yay! And we got some other jobs. Got other folks getting jobs and interviewing. I'm telling you, it's an exciting time. I know it's tough with the pandemic, but you know, there's I guess a silver lining to every cloud. So our folks seem to be doing really well. I'm very excited for everybody. That's very good. Let me. About time to get started. I guess I better share my screen and get started.
Dr. Lamb, I'm going to make a prediction with this group. I feel like that we're going to get the most administrative jobs out of this group faster than any group that we've had.
I think so. I think you're absolutely right, because the scores that this group are making on their work, the quality of their work, the personality, the dispositional behaviors. We got 32 in our group this summer. This is by far the best group we've ever had in terms of outcomes and participation. And I mean, this group is they're just, you know, y'all are just on the ball. I'd like to claim credit for that, but I can't. I'm going to try to figure out a way, though.
Oh, you just took them the next step, but they're really. I've had some great groups, but this has been probably, starting out, the ones that I've worked with, and then I've worked with some of them this summer, have probably been the quality of work has been just it's a high quality of work.
I think they're the most ready to take the next step of any group.
I really do, and I don't normally say that, but I can say that about this group.
And you know, we're working on, and we got it approved all the way up through. We've got all the approvals done, but we're going to accelerate some of these folks into the doctoral program in the fall. They're ready. I mean, there's no sense in holding them back. We're going to let them skip 6:05 and take 7:30 and substitute it. I mean, this is the only group that I've ever had that notion that we ought to do this with. And so we're going to do that. I think Frank's going to go, and I know that Kayla's probably going to go. I mean, we got several that are probably going to go out of this group. Carrie, some others. We got plenty that are ready to go. Eric, Kenneth. I mean, we got plenty that are ready to go. That if they're ready to go to the doctoral program, there's no sense in us holding them up in the fall. So I've never had that before. So I'm very excited about that. And so let's see, Jared Thompson, who earned his doctorate a year ago, just a new principal at Carmel last night. We're so happy for him. So yeah, let's see, we've got one in our master's program. Forgive me, I'm having Sean Bach, who just got a job in our Statesville this week. I was on the phone with Heath. You remember Heath, Dr. Stedman?
Yeah, Heath Banks from up in
Chapel Hill, Carborough.
Chapel Hill, Carborough, yes.
He called me today. He's trying to decide between two jobs he's been offered.
Well, I am glad. He'll notify me after he makes a decision.
Yeah, he's got to make his decision by tomorrow. So he's.
I'm happy for Heath.
Uh-huh.
He deserves it.
We got so many good people who are, their skill set is in such demand, so that's good. So let's kind of catch up to where we are. This is week 6. I can't believe that we're already in the second half of summer. You should be somewhere around task 2 of your skip. Most of you've already, a lot of you've already finished your skip or getting ready to, and we got a couple that have already finished, that are working on the cap, already finished it. And so if you're planning to try to accelerate into the doctoral program, I would highly recommend that you go ahead and try to knock out your cap this summer. Those of you who are doing that.
Dr. Lamb, if the helpful hints that I've done for the cap,
yeah,
why don't you go ahead and send that to them?
Oh,
You want me to send it to you again?
yeah, no. What I was going to show you, Dr. Stedman, I'm already ahead of you. I have put in all of your in all of the class shells. I have done cap materials, and under cap materials, I have your helpful hints, a guidance PowerPoint that Dr.
That's not mine.
The helpful hints is yours.
Yeah, that one's mine. Yeah.
This is Dr. Whitaker's, and I've got 2 examples that I pulled, one from North and one from South Carolina. I've got the task and prompts. The helpful hints obviously has more to it. The PowerPoint is just kind of an overview. I've also put a Dropbox in where I will give you comments. I will give you feedback on all the different tasks. And I will grade them. This is where I'll grade them, and here is your turn it in check. And I've also added them, if you want me to review them for you, I have also added them to discussion board. I have put a place in discussion board for your all at the end. If you'll look down at the end, you'll see I will review your task for you. So there's no sense. Especially those of us who are at home, this would be a perfect opportunity to accelerate yourself all the way through, even if you're not looking at the doctoral program in the fall.
And Dr. Lamb, I will tell them with the helpful hints, I've gone through and I've delineated between South Carolina, because you're dealing with the teacher working conditions survey, and I've done everything for South Carolina, what you need to look for, and I've laid it out pretty much like I did when I did the APSO and the APTO information for you. So it's helped my students a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
That I've been working with.
Yeah, and the good thing is Dr. Stedman is working with 605s this summer, so he knows what's working and not working. So that's great. That's good that we're working across different ones. So Kenneth and Tracy, I am forwarding yours on to Dr. Laws, and he will respond back to you. And so, yeah, we're looking to do that. And so he's got a spiel, and he'd like to talk with you as well. And so I talked with him this afternoon. So we're really excited about this. And so let me send those 2 emails while I'm here. All right. So again, I've got in discussion board, you can put cap tasks for review. I've got a Dropbox for them when you finish them. And our first one went to task string today. We've got all your helpful hints. We've got all the materials that you need for your cap as well. It's right here in the box. So I think that does all of it. I've been really impressed. Kenneth had a really good response this week. We've had some really good stuff this week on our discussion boards. I've taken notes, but I know that we got a busy night, so I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Dr. Lamb, can you answer these questions before we get started?
Yeah,
then?
let me catch up to them.
One student wants to know how many classes in the doctoral program.
9.
9. Another one, how
56,
much
3 years.
how much longer is the doctoral program? And I guess that would mean, based on finishing this and moving on, isn't it a minimum of 3 years?
Yeah, but you can do your dissertation at the same time.
At the same time, yeah.
You can do your dissertation, and so the plan now is to have you out in 3 years, and the plan is even, you know, and we're trying to cut some time off of that by accelerating you through 605, so that it ends up being 2.5 years.
Somebody wants to know when the fall semester begins.
All right, so the way I always look for your dates, I'm guessing you can still see my screen. Yeah, Katie, we'll talk about law said that you can do it in 2 years, 2.5. They've cut it down, but I never, you know, I don't like to tell people to. That's up to Dr. Laws. I mean, he somewhere between 2 and 3, but we're going to cut a semester off of that. You can accelerate into it. It's very good, and it doesn't take forever. It's not the old 6-year programs like Dr. Stedman and I had to do, a minimum of 6 years.
Absolutely.
This is somewhere between 2 and 3, and that's up to you. I can't say I mean, if you're on the ball, you can probably knock it out in 2, you know, but no more than 3. No more than 3. And this would guarantee if you accelerate into the fall, you'd be at 2.5 maximum. And so, I mean, it's the #1 rated program too. I mean, it's not like this is some fly by night. This is real deal.
And realistically, if it's 3 is not bad at all.
Oh Lord, no.
I mean, that is really not
No.
bad for a program of that magnitude.
No, that's exactly right. So the person who asked about dates, when you go into Web Connect, before you go into Blackboard or your email, there's a calendar right here in the middle, and it's like 2 or 3 years out. And so that's a great question. And so let's see. Saturday. Grad starts on Monday, August 24th. Grad 16-week classes begin. And so we will start on Monday, August 24th, is when the semester will start back. And so you'll have your class, or if you accelerate into the doctoral program, you'll either have a Zoom that week or you'll have your low residency that weekend. You know, that's when it starts, on Monday the 24th.
And Katie, we're going to talk about task folio requirements next week. And Dr.
Yeah.
Lamb, I've thought about it. These students did so well. There is absolutely no sense in us taking all the time to go back through things step by step. I think we just need to talk about it, and we need just to answer questions based on what they might have. They already know the process and did a great job with it, every one of these students last semester.
Yeah, so we kind of need to be toward the end of the skip before we talk about it.
Yeah.
So you can just grab your artifacts and go. And so we'd already planned, as we said, we're going to talk about competency folio. We're going to allot some time to do that, and maybe even do some demonstration if we have to next week. But yeah, that's #1 on our agenda next week is competency folio.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to do that. And so let's get started. So now Ingrid, Kishlin, and Kareem are going to go first. I think they want to me to share my screen with them. And I've got everybody's presentations loaded down here at the bottom, as you can see. But I'll go ahead and so of that group, Kishlin, or who's going to share the screen?
First of, my screen will be shared first once you stop, and then
Okay.
Kareem.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to participants. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Ingrid Moore, I'm going to make you the host. Change host to Ingrid. All right. I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to stop my video, and that should allow you to then Ingrid to start sharing your screen.
All right, 1 moment.
Excellent.
And Kishlin.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Before we get started with the presentation, I'd like to ask if everyone will have their phones right beside them. During the presentation, we'll have a short 60-second activity to do. Our team, me, Keishlin Jones, Ingrid, and Kareem, through research and collaboration, discovered that the Leandra case is an active and living demonstration of education policy issues in North Carolina, which surround the rights of students to receive an equitable education. And what we'll do now is we'll let Ingrid proceed with further insight into the case.
Thank you, Kishlin. Okay, so tonight's presentation has 2 sections. The first, we're going to look on the background, which is related to the Leandro ruling, and then in the second half, Kareem is going to take over by helping us to make a connection between the Leandro case and the textbook case. So let's begin. So Leandro is the family that was originally the lead plaintiff when the lawsuit was filed, and hence the name. It involved 5 low-wealth school districts: Hoke, Halifax, Robeson, Vance, Cumberland. They filed a lawsuit against the state of North Carolina, stating that their issue was that children in these counties in North Carolina were being denied their constitutional right to a sound basic education. They also claimed that the state was not providing sufficient funding. All of this began in 1994. So if you are like us, you might be thinking, where was I in 1994? What was happening? That was a long time ago.
Thanks for pointing that out.
The lawsuit that was filed against the state was by parents, children, and school districts in those counties that I mentioned before. The plaintiffs stated that, and I'm sure most of you will agree with this now, and you might even ask yourself, you know, how relevant is this still today? The plaintiffs stated that the wealth of a child's family and a community should not determine the quality of their education. What might surprise you is the response from the state. The state actually held the position that they had a responsibility to fund schools, provide teachers, books, all of that. But the rest was up to the children. If my reaction when I heard that was, I was appalled. I could not believe that they would think that by just doing that and relinquishing the responsibility to children, you know, that was sufficient. But that was the position they actually held. So the court denied the state defendant's motion to dismiss. The case went to the Supreme Court in 1996 to 1997. Leandro won. It was a unanimous Supreme Court decision. And basically they stated that every child in North Carolina should have the opportunity to receive a sound basic education. Words that I'm sure you guys have read and heard a lot, especially recently. So this ruling, this was the first ruling, which was in 1997, and it's probably denoted Leandro won, because that's the first ruling. And these pieces were extracted from some primary source documents, and we'll just share some highlights with you. So in this first ruling, there are 3 principal holdings. The state constitution does not require equal funding of public school systems. And as a result, they said that the funding was not unconstitutional. The second one is that the state does not require students in every school system to receive the same educational opportunities. But the third holding from this, this first ruling is that the state constitution does indeed require that each student in all school systems have the opportunity to receive a sound basic education. So all of that work from 1994 to 1997 was basically to overturn what the state was saying, that they don't really have that, they're only responsible for school buildings and teachers and books, but this ruling basically said, no, you have more responsibility, and it is up to the state to ensure that their students have the opportunity to a sound basic education. So that was the gist of the first ruling. There were two. So in a moment, you're going to, we want you to just listen to the words of, it's just about a minute. Judge Manning was I think, presiding over the case at the time. So we're just gonna let you hear from him for just a minute. Sorry, I have too many tabs open, so it's taking a little time.
While it's coming, we will tell you, Dr. Lamb and I both, Judge Manning did not play games with anybody.
Yeah, he was pretty tough on us in Charlotte, as he should have been. That, you know, being a high wealth district, that we were wasting our money, and what we were doing to some students was akin to genocide. That's a direct quote from Judge Manning.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd call you out.
Okay. All right, and like I said, it's just a minute, and Dr. Lamb, if you'd like to, you can probably share the PowerPoint later on with everyone. It has the full video. We're not playing the full video.
Thank the Friday Institute for giving me this honor, the honor of this award, and I appreciate it. And y'all are lucky to be here tonight and not be where I am, and you can get up and leave anytime you get bored. And that's a nice thing to be able to do. The Leandro case started in 1994 in Halifax County with all the little counties, including Bill Harrison was then the superintendent of Hoke, and they sued the state of North Carolina looking for more money for the poor schools. The state took the position that children in North Carolina, although they had a right to education, did not have a substantive right to any education. And all the state had to do was furnish a school building and a body to teach, and heat and books, and the rest of it was up to the children. Burley Mitchell was Chief Justice, and it got to the Supreme Court, I think, in 96 or 97, 96. And Burley wrote the decision, Leandro won, in which the Supreme Court unanimously found that every child in North Carolina has the right under the Constitution to have the opportunity to a sound basic education. Not that you're going to get one, but that each child has an equal opportunity to have the ability to get a sound basic education. And then they went on to define in 4 major paragraphs what a sound basic education amounts to. And the bottom line that I've now come down after 17 years of doing this to cut it down to the inch is that when you get out of high school, you should be able to read, write, and speak the English language and have an understanding of politics and government, know basic math and sciences. And they listed off the courses that we should, physical science, and you should be able to compete with others in further education, which means in a nutshell that when you graduate from high school in North Carolina, you should be able to go to the community college and get in and not take a year of remedial courses, which is.
And I'm gonna stop right there because you get the gist of what he was saying. He said it all came down to that, and they've updated this, that basically children must be able to leave high school and be able to function in a competitive world. You can listen to his words later on when this is shared, but that was the general gist of what he was hoping would come out of this. It's actually an interesting video if you guys get the time to look on that. Okay, so again, so we'll remind you, this case started in 1994. So the first part of this was literally just to say, to basically rule that the state does have a responsibility beyond just providing a school building and teachers. So all that time, that's what it came down to. So now that this, the plaintiffs now met their burden of proof, they stopped and they said, you know what, that's not sufficient for us. We want the state to be held liable. So trial proceedings continued around 2002. And basically this involved the calling of witnesses. It involved the gathering of evidence. And if you listen to Judge Manning, and it's too long for me to share that, but if you listen to Judge Manning, he explained that when he looked on the scope of what was needed to the evidence that he would have to collect, what he decided to do to ensure that this doesn't get dragged out even longer than it already has, he said that what he did was he tried to narrow it down to one district, and he chose the smallest and the poorest district. And I think later on, Dr. Stedman, Dr. Lamb, you can help fill in some gaps for us. So he decided to focus on and do a lot of the interviews in Hope County, because he said, whatever findings exist in the poorest district, then naturally it would help to represent and serve, give information for the others. So I am assuming that that's why this second ruling was called Hope versus the state. So basically, so in 2002, the second ruling came where the liability judgment was reached from the lower court, and it was affirmed by the Supreme Court. They found that the state was, surprise, surprise, all of this time, this is what it came down to. They definitely concluded after gathering all the evidence that the state was not providing competent, certified, well-trained teachers, that the state was not providing well-trained, competent principals, and that the state was not providing cost-effective resources to support an effective instructional program. This was the second ruling in 2002. So 2004 to 2015, we decided to gather this all together. There were over 20 hearings held during this time. The North Carolina Supreme Court upheld the lower court ruling. Basically, they said to North Carolina, the case is not going away. That here is what we have found. You have, and we've highlighted this section, it says, first of all, we have affirmed that the state of North Carolina is ultimately responsible for providing each child with access to sound basic education. And this part we found interesting, and that this responsibility cannot be abdicated by transferring responsibility to the LEAs. So they made that clear. In 2013, the Supreme Court confirmed the liability judgment and the mandates of the Leandra 1 and 2. They said, listen, it remains in full force and effect. It is not going away. So you might ask yourself, so what was the next step? So what does the state need to do to remedy the infraction? Since the court basically said, you have been, you need to do something about this. It's not enough for us to say that you have not been meeting the constitutional requirements. So the next step was in 2017, the plaintiffs decided, they asked Judge Manning, I think at this time had retired. So it was Judge Lee. In 2017, the plaintiffs asked Judge Lee to appoint an independent consultant, I think this was West Ed, to make recommendations because there's no point in the state saying, we are not providing, there are many children in North Carolina that aren't receiving a sound basic education. We need to do something about it. So basically that's the next step. So the plaintiffs asked Judge Lee to appoint an independent consultant to make recommendations for the state to be compliant with the Leandra ruling. Governor Cooper established a commission on access to sound basic education. In 2018, Judge Lee appointed West Ed, an independent consultant, to investigate and recommend a plan to remedy the constitutional violations. Last year, I think maybe in December 2019, West Ed finally released their 287-page report, we have hyperlinked all of these primary sources here for anybody who wants that. And it was based on lots of research. It was based on extensive interviews that were conducted. And the report outlined 7 critical needs, which is important. These are the 7 needs. It says basically 1, recruit and develop qualified, well-prepared teachers in every classroom, and also offer a competitive salary. So that's 1. 2, qualified, they place emphasis from the West Ed report, they place emphasis on having qualified principals, APs, etc. Again, they think that if we're going to raise the bar, we also need to offer competitive remuneration. 3, the finance system that provides adequate, equitable, and predictable, emphasis was placed on predictable funding, especially to address the needs of at-risk students. It said that is something that they place high priority on. They also the courts define what they call at-risk students, and it entails students of color, EL students, and a number of others, but they've defined that. They want an innovative assessment system. You'll see that coming up again. Not just the same old multiple choice end of year test. They want a better system of assessing students. And they've called for support for low performing schools using the turnaround model. That's something that I think became popular out of this, through this period as well, as a remedy. Early childhood education, they place emphasis on that. And then finally, alignment of high school to post-secondary and career expectations. So these seven recommendations are critical. Judge Lee made a consent order, basically issuing, based on the West Ed report, they issued the consent order that the state basically needs to address these. You can, I did not want to do that. I apologize. And we are getting to the end, I promise you, for the first half. So basically, so in January of this year, the consent order was issued by Judge Lee. This is so you can see that all this is recent. And basically what Judge Lee did was took the findings from West Ed and outlined those requirements. And then what they said is, they said that the state needs to prepare an action plan 60 days from January. And that, in other words, an action plan stating how are you going to ensure that those 7 requirements or remedies have been met or put in place. As we already know, COVID-19 struck unexpectedly, making the inequities even more pronounced. But the court said, you know what, the challenges posed by COVID-19 does not excuse the state from its constitutional obligation. Again, emphasis placed on at-risk students. So they still had to turn in that action plan. The Leandra remedy, it must prioritize resources for Blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, and low-income Carolinians. I think that's how they've defined at-risk students. So in June 15th, that's last week, the report was issued. We have linked it, by the way, in this. So this is how recent this is. Last week, the state issued a report outlining for this fiscal year 2020 to 2021, outlining the steps that they're going to take to ensure that they're addressing those 7 key points that were in the West Ed report. Some of the things, it would be I think everybody needs to actually read it. It's really interesting, and I think it will show you some of the things that are in the pipeline. Page 5 to 13 lists details of actions to be taken to address them. They've spoken about something that I personally, I think is a long time coming, diversify the teaching force. That was actually in the report. That's one of the things that they're going to take steps to address. Increase wages for teachers, that's coming based on this report. They want to institute a leadership academy for administrators, APs, and principals to ensure that there's ongoing professional development for them. And again, this is all going back to the findings from the Wested report. They revised state funding. A lot of what I read in here basically stated that all the caps that were previously on in the budget, they said they want that removed. One of them was remove the 10.6% funding cap for LEPs. So they're shooting for more flexibility to ensure that the needs of the at-risk students are met. And they have also outlined the steps that they're going to take to ensure that they have a more balanced assessment system. And to recap, and we are at the halfway point here. If you are getting a little jittery, we're almost finished. Get that phone handy.
What are we doing?
So that is are you seeing this, Doctor?
No, that's why I said we're not seeing.
Okay, so we are going to just pause that then, since it is not complying. Thank you for saying something. I'm unable to know if you are seeing.
Right, I
that.
know.
So I'm going to just bypass that for now. I apologize for that. And
I had my phone already.
I beg your pardon?
I said I had. Now I see that. Okay, now that has come up. www.menti.com and use that code.
Please, if everybody could take 60 seconds, everybody, including you, Dr. Stedman and Dr. Lamb.
I'm on it.
Beautiful. So just go to menti.com and type in that code. And what we want you to do is, so the code is 575606. And I'll wait for a little bit before switching my screen. And what do we?
Do we have to put the spaces in?
You just type the number in as is, no space.
Okay.
And I can't really see everyone, but if you can just give an indication, maybe in the chat, just to let me know if you're good, if you're there. Let me see. Any kind of indication. Okay, I'm going to assume that everybody's there. Is that okay? Beautiful. Okay.
I'm there. If I can be there, anybody can be there.
Excellent. Okay, so if you go, you will see the question. So basically, now that we have reviewed the Leandro, the first half, and then my teammate Kareem is gonna do the second half and help us to make some connections. So what we wanted you to do is just go ahead and type in like what words resonate with you right now. What are some words that would represent how you feel about this case and what's to come, and then just submit that, and then I'm going to pass this over to my teammate.
All right, who's gonna share their screen now?
Kareem.
I'm sharing my screen whenever you give me permission.
I'm on that right now. All right, I'm gonna stop my share, stop my video. All right.
Can y'all see it now?
Yes.
Let me. Okay, so basically, John D., who is the superintendent, he wrote a letter to the community telling them about the student-based budgeting and how he's gonna try the pilot program out in the 4 schools and how they're gonna allocate funds based on the needs of the students. Okay. He came up with this idea from conversations with his principals and meeting with them, and this is what they decided to do. The Superintendent John D. proposed to address the main argument of the plaintiffs in the Leandro case. The plaintiffs argued that the quality of a child's education should not be dependent upon the wealth of the family or that child's community, and that it costs more to properly educate disadvantaged children. John D's proposal attempted to provide all the students in the pilot schools with an equal education by allocating funds based on the students' needs. So John D attempted to satisfy some of the arguments in that case with this proposal. I don't know if that was his intention, but
let's go back to that one. Make sure that we hit the most salient point is the last bullet.
Superintendent's actions are well intended, but according to the Leandro case, revising the funding formula is the job of the state. It's not
not the LEA. That is expressly forbidden in Leandro 1, and that has not changed in all the subsequent findings. It's up to the state to do this. The local cannot, and it's not like, well, if the state doesn't, you're allowed to. No, Leandro 1 said the state can't do that. The local can't do that. It has to be the state. So according to Leandro, and that's the standard that we're applying, and y'all are doing, this is best presentation ever. Although it's well-intentioned, it's just not legal for the superintendent to do that. And there's two reasons why, and I'll get to those later, but I want to make sure that we got our point in here. You have gotten to the kernel of truth in this case, which is, according to Leandro, the superintendent can't do this.
Yeah, and also this other point, that bullet that I skipped, the superintendent is using the priority-based budgeting method. That's one of the budgeting methods that schools use.
Yeah, that's an equity model.
The ethical paradigms, okay, justice. The superintendent is aiming for equity by using priority-based budgeting by allocating funds based on the needs of the students. So, and basically, does the law support this? And we kind of concluded that it does not.
No, it doesn't.
CARE. I apologize. Oh, CARE. Student-based budgeting was not arbitrary or capricious because the superintendent involved the principals in the process and developed a specific method to allocate the funds. He listened to the principals' concerns before developing the program. Critique, okay. Some people may disagree with the student-based budgeting because at-risk category of students may include a very high percentage of poor or minority students, which will make this budgeting method appear to favor certain schools that have a large percentage of students from those social classes, okay?
All right, I want to ask a question there.
Yes.
These people will object based on what will those schools lose that lose money? Under this model that he's talking about, what will the schools who have money taken away from them, what most specifically will they lose?
Teachers.
Teachers. Who pays for teachers? The state. And so if you start moving state money, and that's why Leandro said, can't do this, they'll lose teachers. And that would be a highly unpopular thing, even though we might agree about equity. The blowback on this, the Robin Hood effect, would kill us.
Also, some points to consider. It is not clear if this student-based budgeting led to more funding for those schools or less funding for those schools. And also, it is not clear how the budgeting for these schools will compare to the rest of the district schools. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Yes.
But the profession, the student-based budgeting shows that the superintendent is taking responsibility for the student's success. He is also attempting to promote social justice by developing a process to establish equity. Leandro ruling currently calls for provisions to be made to allow for more flexible spending, especially for at-risk students.
but that's in state funding, the money from the lottery, the money from the General Assembly. That's not local money. There is a Leandro fund now. Dr. Massengill, who's one of our coaches, he's on the other, he's in his class tonight right now, but I'm hoping he can join us later. He just left Moore County where he got to share in some of that money. He just went to New Hanover, but again, that's state money. That's not local money.
Okay,
So,
and that's pretty much the conclusion. These are a list of the primary sources related to Leandro. The
excellent.
West End Leandro report. And here's one of the court cases, state of North Carolina and county of Wake. And
yeah,
the last one. And that's the end.
thank you. What an excellent.
Dr. Lamb, we shared with you the results of how everybody was thinking about the case. It's in your email, so you can probably pick it up when you get a chance.
Okay, I will do that. All right. But, you know, I think equity is what everybody talks about. I think somewhere in there, mine says maybe. You know, maybe. I don't know. I thought we were going to. You know, quite honestly, I thought we were going to. Dr. Stedman and I both thought we were going to win the first time around. That we were going to break the flat funding formula and start doing an equity-based model of funding, district power equalizing. We thought we were going to win the first time. Remember, I was a fellow at the Institute of Government at the time. Dr. Stedman was principal in one of the plaintiff districts. We thought we were going to win the first time. That was 26 years ago. I'm still waiting for a win after 26 years. So, you know, I'd like to be more hopeful. The West Ed report. Now, you understand that the General Assembly hasn't adopted that or put the money behind it yet. That's just a recommendation. But we're hopeful. We truly are hopeful that maybe that with this time around, we're going to eventually get some money behind this from the state other than that little piddly amount that came from the lottery. I mean, you understand that that's how we got the North Carolina and South Carolina lotteries, is to address equity issues. But by the time they spread it around to the prize money, the company that's running it, there's just hardly any money left over. And it's not made a real difference. The lottery money has not made an impact. And unfortunately, it's gone to capital, where they've, you know, built cafeterias and done things like that rather than get it into the buildings for kids and teachers. And so I'm hopeful. But now, to kind of summarize here, there's two reasons why the superintendent can't do this. One is Leandro says you can't. Locals can't do this. But even beyond that, let's talk quickly about where money comes from, where local money comes from. See, somebody might say, well, maybe we could do this locally. Well, no, you can't. But even if you could, this would not be the way that you would do it. In February, the superintendent starts the budget process and goes to principals, department chairs, directors, puts together a draft of the budget, which goes to the school board. The school board moves things around and it's line items, and they finally approve the budget, except that doesn't mean anything. That just means it's now ready to go to the county commissioners for funding. And every line item has to be in there about how every local dollar is going to be spent. And they will sometimes say, well, we're not giving you that much. You've got to cut something out, or we want this or that. Then the negotiation starts. And then by July, that budget is set, because who funds that budget is the county commissioners. That's who funds it. And so a principal or a superintendent, in this case, a superintendent, cannot go in and say, all right, we're going to start moving this local money around because it was already earmarked. It was already approved by the county commissioners who gives you the money. So the second legality problem with this one is that the superintendent is still the superintendent, but the superintendent does not have the authority to move money across line items. That goes back to the county commissioners. And so this one gets you coming and going. Number one, the Landro case says that locals can't do this. It has to be up to the state. And number two, the way that the state law works in North and South Carolina is that school boards are unempowered. They can't levy their own taxes. And so for that reason, they have to create and present line item budgets to their funding authority, which is the county commissioners or the town commissioners. And once that's approved, they can't take money. We've talked about this. You can't take money from one source and spend it on something else. There's rules on how it's spent. And so the superintendent said, I don't care what the budget that the county commissioners passed, I'm going to do this with it. Well, that's illegal. You can't do that. So he's illegal coming and going on this one, unfortunately. It's a great idea. We're not saying that this is not. So the question from Kareem is, could the county commissioners approve a program like this beforehand? Absolutely. If you started in February and got them behind it, and this was a school board initiative, but not a superintendent initiative. That was very clear in the case, that the superintendent had decided that he wanted to do this. He did not have the approval of the board because it was not budgeted. But yes, if you could get your commissioners to go for this. The problem is then you get into the politics of that. Because remember, those county commissioners represent different parts of the community. And guess what happens on part of the community that's going to get less? What they're going to do? They're going to scream and yell. So it can't be a Robin Hood. We take from the rich and give to the poor. It has to be a state funding thing that there's more money coming in for those kids. Because otherwise it's a winner-loser thing. And we're already seeing in our society that, you know, that we're pulling further apart rather than getting closer together. This would just pour gas on the fire. I don't know of the 114 districts in the state of North Carolina, and there's 56 in South Carolina. Of the 114 districts, Ingrid said it's not just about money. You're exactly right. It's not just about money. There's a lot of political blowback. That's what I'm talking about. In those 114 districts, I don't know how many of them would go for this. I don't know. I can't know that. But again, it's not so much about money as it's political ideology. That's, you know, I thought we were better people than we've turned out to be. I've been really disappointed in us in the last few years. I thought we'd come further than we have. I was wrong. I'll be the first to raise my hand. I was wrong. I thought we were better people. And so Ingrid's exactly right. It's not really about the money. It's about political philosophies and fighting and winning, and I want to be right. And, you know, there's so much of that political blowback now. And truly, in the end, it's not so much about money anymore. It's about, this is, you know, I'm looking out for my tribe. I'm looking out for my group. And for me to win, somebody else has to lose. And the politics of this is just so heavy now, that you could never mount this. You could never mount this as a local initiative from the superintendent. One, because it's not legal, and number two, that, you know, the superintendent would get fired in a week if you tried something like this. But coming and going, Leandro said no. The way that the state funding works in both North and South Carolina with unempowered school boards, you can't change money that's been allotted across line items. You can't do that. It would have to be allotted this way to begin with. It couldn't be, I'm going to change this, I've got something in mind. And not only for the money part, but for the political part as well. It would be incredible, the blowback that you would get. Extremely well done, thought out, well-researched presentation, as good as I've ever seen. So thank you to Ingrid, Kishlin, and Kareem. All right, we're going to go, and again, apologize for these two groups didn't get to go last week. We're going to go to Nathan, Megan, Julia, and Anthony. So if you'll tell me who's going to be the host, I will pull up yours. Either way you want to do it.
No, I'm going to speak, Dr. Lamb. You can pull it up.
Okay, I will pull it up. Then I'm going to share
And,
my screen.
There's a lot of because see, I am from Hope County,
Yes.
and I graduated from Hope County High School in '91. And another thing about Leandro case is the plaintiff, Leandro, he had a full academic scholarship to do. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I don't mean to be ugly, but coming from Hope County, that is amazing.
Well, Hope County is a Title I district because 68% of our students are socially and economically challenged.
Right.
Well, I mean, and it is very, it's very hard. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just like with remote learning in the pandemic. I mean, we had to put hotspots throughout the county in order to just reach all of the students because of all of the stuff that was, you know.
And we're having to do the same thing, Anthony, because we're your neighbor and we were in the lawsuit as well. So it's still happening. What, 29 years later, we're still dealing with 25. We're still dealing with a lot of the same stuff that.
Exactly. That's why I said I thought we were better people. I fully thought in the mid 90s that we were going to have this knocked out before the new millennium. I did. How dumb was I?
Okay. Juliet asked, where's Hope County? Hope County is near Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and you're Cumberland County, Juliet.
Yeah, we're about
Rayford, south and a little bit west of Fayetteville.
Yes, straight down Highway 401 south.
Yep, out of Fayetteville. Go by Fayetteville Christian School where Dr. Stedman and I used to work, and just we're off of Ireland Drive. Just keep right on rolling right into Rayford.
Oh yes. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
I'm gonna let you pick up right about here.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah, well, the superintendent's decision, it was like a hybrid of priority-based and site-based budgeting. The superintendent does have leeway to move funds within the allocated areas, but the board must approve and allocate the allocation of funds within the district.
That is correct. Excellent. Perfect.
Because you have two general funds. You have the general state aid and then, you know, the categorical funds, which are
correct.
Federal programs, the EC, ESL, APEN, lunch programs, so on and so forth. Now, the superintendent in this case could not attach funds to student based on predetermined formula without board approval.
Correct.
And must function within the laws.
That's correct.
Is the superintendent distributing the money equitably to the schools? And this is a violation of the Leandro case because how can he guarantee that he is actually being equitable to all the schools and not taking funds from one student who actually needs it?
That is correct. Remember, your Leandro right is that basic funding for that basic education that Ingrid covered in her presentation. Every child gets a basic education. We put a dollar figure on that. Can't touch that. That's what the state said. You can't touch that. And these two bullets right here are perfect. Anthony, thank you so much. Anthony, Megan, Julia, and Nathan. These are the 2 points that I was making in between. You should have interrupted me and said, we got you covered. Coming and going. You can't move stuff across line items. That's illegal. And you can't take one and give from the other. You know, it has to be a state thing. So here are the 2 bullets that I was just talking about. Excellent, excellent.
Okay. And yeah, legally he cannot take federal and state funds away from the students, but he can spend the funds left over from a general fund where he sees fit. But you know,
and I'm guessing that's what he did last year when he did a little bit. You know, when he gave him a little bit of money. That's what he did. See, that question's come up before. Well, where did he get the money last year? He had leftover general fund money. You can do that. Yes. But you can't do it as a system. That violates the law. That is correct. Perfect. Thank you for that.
Okay. If he does this, he is violating the law. Has he involved all the stakeholders that are impacted by this decision? And is the movement of the money fair and equitable to all the students? Those are the questions that they must ask themselves and all the stakeholders that are involved in this.
That's exactly right.
And what is the formula for this predetermined weight? If the money is supposed to follow the students, what does he mean when he says that he will empower student leaders? Where is the funding coming from, and what are the specific needs, and why are they greater than the needs of the other students? Right. These are all questions that he has to ask himself and the stakeholders in order to, I guess, validate or get board approval for it. And what are the goals with the program? And how long was the program, and was it successful? Where's the data to validate his use of funds to actually do this? And okay, where's the data? Okay, I already said the last point. And the paradigm. And I believe, okay, I thought that one of my cohort members were going to stop in and do this part.
No, just go ahead and finish this up.
All right.
You're doing a great job, man. Go ahead.
All right.
Nathan,
Just fair and equitable.
don't let me get in the way.
The superintendent, his thoughts, his intentions are good, but it's a violation of law. He shows care,
Yeah.
well-being, professionalism, and everything else, but it's illegal. And like you said, if he does this, he's going to lose his house.
Yes. You're going to be asked this question when you interview for your first administrative job. You're going to be asked this very question. There's a policy, there's a law in your district that you think is not good for students. Will you enforce it? And the answer has to be yes. If you don't, you'll lose your house. I respect what he's trying to do, but that's just you know, law comes first. Law and policy. Federal, state, you know, we can't. Sometimes law and ethics are kind of at odds, and we have to be able to hold two competing ideas in our heads as adults. That something might be right, it's just not legal.
And we have to follow the law.
And we have to be grown people and follow the law. That's exactly right.
Yes.
You can't be kids, and I don't want it that well. You know, I'm sorry. Sometimes you just have to be adults. You just have to put you know, the big boy, big girl pants on and go about your business. I mean that these are critical conversations that we have to have. I hate it, but you know, you just got to know this. Excellent job. You know, when here's the part that scares me the most. Every semester when we do this case, and unfortunately, you know, we've done this case for a while because Leandro's been going on forever. But here's the part that bothers me the most. What if you were in a district that said, all right, we're going to give different amounts of money to different schools, but they decided, well, we're not going to base it on high need. We're going to base it on something else, like we're going to try to accelerate this group of kids over here to college. 10 years ago, I'd have said, Dale, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard you say, and you said a lot of stupid things. 10 years later, I would not be surprised if we had a group. We had a group actually in Wake County a few years back that basically tried to do this. They wanted extra teachers for the gifted kids. They wanted to take them from everybody else. And thankfully, the school board kind of came to its senses, but they got a school board member elected and tried to upset the balance and wanted to do away with equity pupil assignment and wanted to give some magnet schools more money for the gifted kids. And I was like, well, wait a minute. 10 years ago, I'd have said, Dale, you're crazy. That could never happen. But Dwayne is right. I mean, you got to follow the law. You're going to lose your house. You know, that's exactly right. And so I appreciate that. And so, again, it's all about following the law and doing the right thing. In the end, I wish they weren't sometimes two different things, but they are. The right thing is not always the legal thing. Yeah, you know, Samantha said, don't similar things happen in redistricting is the dirtiest thing ever. You know, redistricting of schools is, I mean, people ought to be given guns and knives. I mean, that's the nastiest, that's the dirtiest fight ever. And so, but you'd think people would know the right thing to do, but as we've seen lately, I'm not as optimistic as I used to be about, you know, how far we've come with equity for all of our kids. We've not come near as far as I thought we had. I hate to say that. I don't mean to sound like gloomy Gus, but I think we just haven't. Yeah, Dr. Stebbins said this is really good. This is great. All right, we're gonna kind of, I'm keeping an eye on our time. We try to keep these to about 90 minutes. These folks didn't get to go next week, and so they got some extra time. But what a great job that they've done. All right, so I am going to share my screen, and we'll get to. Let me do a share, and I'm gonna take that one down. I'm going to do, who's this one? Kayla. I'm looking for Carrie. Okay, I can close that one.
And while you're bringing it up, I want people to make sure you pay attention. Ingrid did an excellent job bringing it up to as current as she could possibly bring it as of this week. In light of everything that we're experiencing with the pandemic, with the hurricanes, and you're going to see something as a result, because these low districts are getting, they're just going down, down, down even more. Something has got to happen.
Well, I mean, that's what Dwayne was talking about. They're having to take hotspots out in Hope County. Something, we got to have some relief.
We are too. And you're going to find states like South Carolina that's going to start using this case. You're going to see other states doing the same thing. And Leandra is going to be the case that they use to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I told you, it has national implications. It's not just a local kind of thing. It's going to be North and South Carolina, but beyond eventually. Because the pandemic has focused us on the inequities in our schools. We talk about, oh, we'll just go online. Well, does everybody have a computer and a hotspot and a way to get on the internet? Afraid not. So,
Ingrid said, how was Charlotte-Mecklenburg involved in this? They were the rich people.
they were the people, and I was working there, but I was a fellow at the Institute of Government before it became the Friday Center. That was a little bit tricky for us who worked there, but who also were fellows at the Institute of Government. I did my doctorate at Chapel Hill, and that's how I got involved in that. And so I was a fellow there at the Institute of Government. The Institute of Government used to be on campus at Chapel Hill. Was where they train like county commissioners and school board members, and we trained school people as well there. And so it was a little white building on campus, but then they moved it to the Friday Center. But I had been in a low wealth district, had changed to Charlotte-Mecklenburg during that time. They'd recruited me. So here I was working on this case as a fellow at the Institute of Government against my own district, which was one of the high wealth districts that was fighting this. So, because it was going to be a district power equalizing with a recapture provision. They were going to take $2,000 a student away from Charlotte-Mecklenburg. That was the proposal, to give to the low wealth districts, so that we both end up at 9, rather than the low wealth being at 7 and us being at 11. That was the plan. And that's when, the well-to-do people got motivated and activated and got the decision. We really thought we were going to win, though. I really did. But what do I know? All right. So this is Carrie, Melissa, Amy, and Anthony, not Dwayne, the other Anthony. And so I'll let y'all pick it up. Is there anything that I've missed? It's just been a review of the case so far. Here's what they found.
Let's see, I'm not sure if Anthony.
Darlene, mine's just to know. I can't see. I see Kareem's.
Okay, let me stop my share. Let me share screen. Screen share. Let me see if I can get it to come up. Can you see it now?
They just said Dr. Lamb has started screen sharing. That's all. Let me see.
I've got it. I can.
Okay.
Yeah, I can run through it real quick. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
So basically, when looking at the positives and negatives of school-based budgeting, in theory, you would think that allocate more resources to the school for the students in need, and the dollars would follow the students. But according to Leandro, like everyone else has said, this is illegal in the state of North Carolina. You can manipulate federal and state funds. Local counties have no decision in what to do that. They can't manipulate. This would give the principal way too much control over how the funds are
Yeah.
spent, which would lead to disparities across the counties, and the budget would become very fluid and unreliable, which, like you said before, would lead to them losing teachers. So
That's
would-
why I love this slide. Thank you for this. That last one, your budget would become very fluid and unreliable, and that would cost you teachers that are funded from whatever source, and that's where you would really get hurt. And so those are things that people could use against you. You know, it's hard to argue if it's just money, but when you start moving teacher positions, that's when you get people's dander up. They get very protective of that, and even though they might be the well-intentioned people, you start moving their teachers out, and you've got a fight on your hands. That was the, you know, I was in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and I can tell you, you know, the word on the street is if this happens, we're going to lose 4,000 teachers. And so everybody got mobilized to fight it, even though there's a lot of equity needs in Charlotte. That was, you know, we're going to lose our teachers. And so when the budget becomes fluid and unstable, and teachers are affected, you get people's attention in a negative way. Excellent presentation from Carrie, Melissa, Amy, and Anthony. Okay, next up, I have I've got Juliet, Katie, Eric, Paulette, and Andrea.
That's us, Dr. Lamb. I'm going to be the spokesperson.
Great, Katie. Thank you.
Okay, and you can just, I'm going to let you be my Vanna White if that's okay.
I'll be glad to.
Okay, so first of all, thanks to everybody who came before us because you did a beautiful job and you saved me a lot of time. So I'm just going to frame out how we did this. So we summarized the letter, we summarized the Leandro case, we summarized resource allocation, essentially what everybody's gotten into, and then we got into the compelling questions around this. And really what we focused on is the language of the law and how nebulous it was from the outset, which led to all these years of going back and forth and what does this really mean? The micropolitics of it all. One of the comments, Alan and I were going back and forth a little bit about CMS, and you know, while all Leandro is absolutely essential, it's not going to stop the parents at an Ardrey Kell or a community house from speaking their mind, you know. And
that's
just
correct.
In the day and time we live in, I have to say, a few years ago when we redid the attendance boundaries and whatnot, I'll never forget, I was sitting at the richest middle school in CMS at an SLT meeting, and one parent literally said out loud to people, well, we're okay if they come here, but we're not going to go there. And
Yeah.
I just about lost my mind. So we talked about the micropolitics of it, and then the implications, most importantly, for if this were actually to take place, what would this mean for a building level leader? And that's how we came to that. So that's a great place to start, Dr. Lamb, the compelling questions. We focused on how Leandro specifically defines competency in terms of teachers and principals, the resources, et cetera. And finally, when West Ed, 20 years later, the independent consultants conducted that research report, and I've worked for West Ed on a number of projects, that's when we finally started to see a clear delineation of what they mean by competency. But that took 20 years for that to happen and going back and forth in court. How were data and budget compliance laws used to predetermine those weights? Did the superintendent fashion this off any kind of other pilot district or pilot school? Where did he get his data from to even develop this proposal? How was it determined if the pilot schools met student performance goals under the new budget? That was not mentioned. Did they actually meet student performance objectives despite the superintendent deciding to roll this out after the four pilot schools? And then lastly, seeking approval from the school board. Was that even an action step? So I know that when we read these case studies, sometimes not every single detail is included in the narrative, but it still leads to a lot of good questions. Third bullet point down. Oh, hang on. Sorry, Dr. Lamb.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Third bullet point, what was the criteria for choosing the 4 pilot schools, and what role did parents in the community play prior to the decision to go district-wide? Because I've seen it time and again, and that's where districts get in trouble, when you don't truly involve stakeholder voice. You don't have to agree with their voice, but you've got to have them be heard so that it doesn't lead. It's kind of a CYA type of situation down the road, and it doesn't seem that that really took place. And then what we really focused on in terms of building level of support is, you know, it's been decided that they're going to roll this out district-wide based on these 4 schools. In the absence of data to sell this rollout, still, what level of principal support will the district and the superintendent be providing to building level principals who now have to execute this? Will they be there to support them when you've got the mom sitting there questioning where her money's going? So, okay, you can go to the next slide, Dr. Lamb.
All right, I want to remind everybody that the CMS High School Challenge identified 3 schools. They put extra money in it. It was people got so angry. People got voted off the county commission, and one party got voted in just to stop that $6 million for the high school challenge. That was the blowback that came. CMS attempted this very thing. Identified 3 schools, put extra money and resources in them. Not only did it not go district-wide, it caused a shift in the county commission, and they specifically in the line item budget eliminated that money for the next year. That's how big the blowback was. Now, and they acted like that $6 million was all the money in the world. $6 million at that time was less than 1/2 of 1% of the budget.
Wow.
It was $6 million in a $1.4 billion budget. You do the math, that's about 0.4 of 1% of the budget. And they acted like, and they campaigned on the notion that all the money in the district was going to these 3 high schools.
Wow.
And got people to what was known as the Gang of 4, ran as a block and got in. And the first thing they did, that line item disappeared from the budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's how we felt that the budget plan was appropriate. It was obviously driven by student needs, performance, and outcomes. It maximizes inclusivity and equal access to quality learning opportunities and resources, regardless of economic status or geographical location. It adheres somewhat to Leandro legislation in the sense that it gives priority to students in greatest need of resource allocation. But that's pretty much it to that extent. And then a plan for transparency and stakeholder involvement. So that was a little bit after the fact, but at the end of the letter, it was kind of like, oh, and the principals will be reaching out to you to see what you think about it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So to that extent, we felt it was appropriate. And then the next slide is why we feel it's not appropriate. So I think there are some considerations in terms of funding that he did not take into, or she did not take into consideration. What is the level of short and long-term sustainability, and does the plan forecast changes in student enrollment and assignment, salary increases, facilities planning, legislative proposals that are on the docket? So a number of things that I'm wondering if those went into consideration. And then bullet point 2, how does the district plan for pushback as well as community support from all stakeholders?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes back to, the majority of districts are funded through property taxes. That's and like right. It or not, when you've got very high value property and you've got parents complaining they're putting the bulk of their money, they're wondering where those resources go. And those are the tough questions that principals would need support with from the district when they arise. Third bullet point, what available student performance data exists to support a district-wide rollout? And then again, how will principals be supported in moving forward, given what seems to be a unilateral decision by the district to roll it out district-wide? As opposed to the input they got from the 4 schools, where was the input from the rest of the district before saying we're going to roll this out? Okay.
I live in the wealthiest town in Mecklenburg County. Charlotte is Mecklenburg, and there's some other towns around the city of Charlotte. I live in the wealthiest town in Mecklenburg, which is the wealthiest town in North Carolina.
Yep.
Lake Norman, Cornelius. The value on my house went up $120,000 in 1 year. It did on everybody's.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can already imagine the screaming and yelling that parents are, our property taxes went up 20% this year. What are we going to get in? They're already asking, what are we going to get in our schools extra? They're not looking to see, supporting somebody else's school. They want more.
Yeah.
Their gold shoes are too tight. They want more.
Right. And just not taking into consideration how those questions would be vetted and handled was an oversight. So
Yeah,
implications for principals and school-based leaders, what school-based actions, if this were to actually take place, what school-based actions must be taken by principals in order to be compliant with Leandro, the commission's recommendations, and the superintendent's decision to roll out SBB district-wide? And then a big consideration is the party line. How should this be communicated to families and communities in a way that is consistent with state and local guidelines? What support, if any, will be provided to school leaders as part of a transparent, systemic effort? And then what will be the impact on existing school-based programs and funding?
Exactly.
And then last but not least, our references, and these were the various sources that we took a look at. This was a good one. We enjoyed this one. It was so complex, and following the history of this and the implications to this day.
There's so much learning. Thank you, Katie. There's so much learning that comes out of this one. But to the point of this one is, parents don't like it when you raise their taxes, even if it's going to their schools. Can you imagine how mad they are if you raise their taxes to go to somebody else's child's school?
Yeah. And then just a final thought too is I kind of mentioned in the chat earlier, having been at Title I and literally the richest high school in CMS, that's been much in the news lately, Ardrey-Kell High School. In 1 year recently, they raised $500,000 through their PTA. $500,000 in 1 year through their PTA.
Yeah, exactly.
And just,
I mean, but I guess when people talk about socialism, that's what they're talking about is, we call it in our business, we call it the Robin Hood. We take from the rich and give the poor. Well, the rich don't like that. They don't like it when you take from them for their own kids. They especially don't like it when you give it to somebody else's. Yeah. And the problem that we've gotten into is, Katie made a point that we pay for schools through property taxes, corporate, business, and homeowner. The problem is all the corporate people now are cutting deals on these incentives to move their factories and their businesses to a community tax-free. When those incentives are given, they come straight from the school budget, 100%. That's where they come from. Yeah. And so the burden of funding schools has shifted disproportionately on parents and homeowners away from corporations in specifically the last 20 years. And those of you from South Carolina, we have you to thank. The watershed moment on that was the BMW plant in Greer. That happened in the early 90s. That was the first time in North or South Carolina, all of a sudden, instead of saying everybody pays their taxes, they said, we want the BMW plant. And so we will give $100 million to get the BMW plant and the Michelin plant and some of the other associated plants that come with it. We will do that. And that got North and South Carolina in the discounting business. And so every time there is an incentive, a tax break, like in Rutherford County, when the Facebook plant was built, they have tax-free in perpetuity, and the county bought the old property, tore the building down, the old mill down, and improved it and gave it to them tax-free and in perpetuity, and got hardly any jobs out of it. Wow. But that money came straight from the school budget. So you got to understand, parents are screaming and you say, well, boy, it's not fair that they should try to help it. But understand, parents have had to pick up a disproportional amount of funding for schools over the last 20 years. It's gone up and up and up as what corporations has gone down and down and down. So the lines crossed, unfortunately. Corporate going down, homeowners going up. Therein lies the micro-political consideration as well. Mm-hmm. So you might have people who believe in equity and diversity and doing the right thing, but if you can't just keep on draining them dry, is what they would argue. that we're paying too much already. The people in Cornelius got hit with a 20% appraisal, this increase in the appraisal of their property this year. You know, and so because they built another new school. So that's what's got to pay for it. Excellent job by Juliet, Katie, Erica, Paulette, and Andrea. All right. We've got Tina, Danelle, Casey, and Laquetta on deck here. We have anybody from this group that'd like to, got anything you'd like to add to our discussion tonight?
So I think everybody have covered, and even with some of the little gaps that we had as we was discussing, we realized that the groups all together have kind of filled in those wonderful gaps that we was having. I guess what we want to say is just because it's a great idea and you may have great reason, it doesn't translate to be a lawful purpose. So you have to make sure that your feelings don't get you in trouble, because it's important that as administrators that we abide by the law so we won't get ourselves in trouble, but also, you know, just because that's what we signed up for. And I know sometimes we get a little mushy and stuff, but if you want to be a good administrator and you really want to be a good leader, then you abide by the law and not your feelings. Understand, feelings change anyway, but just make sure that we're abiding by the law so we won't see you on the news and it's say that you went to Gardner Webb and you was in my class and you're going to jail.
Well, we had the situation this past week. My office mate, my partner, my research partner at Gardner Webb said, look what's happened in this district, where the superintendent wanted to bring a learning program in. I won't debate the efficacy of the learning program. It's probably a good program. But because there was restrictions on the funding, the line items that we've talked about tonight, she did a deal where she was having them send 12 different invoices. Now, she fully believes that, I mean, she doesn't think that she spent the money incorrectly. She believes that in the learning program that it's the thing for her district. But she has circumvented the law on limits of purchases, you know, moving from line items. And so she had to resign this week. And she'll probably end up in legal problems more than just resigning and lost her license. That happened, I believe, help me out here. I believe that was that Stanley County? One of the counties in the Piedmont, one of the smaller ones. That happened this past week. And so you're exactly right. You may in your heart believe it's the right thing to do. That's feelings. You got to make your decisions on the law. That's exactly right. And Quetta's right. You may change your mind. But one of the things I can tell you is you know, you got to pick your battles. Is this the hill you want to die on? And that kind of sums that up. Is this really the hill you want to die on? You have a lot of good things that you could do for your students, but not if you die on this hill. You won't win this one, because the law, both ends of the law are against you. The state law, the Leandro on state law, the local on how you can move funds across budget items. Both of these are against you here. You can't. You've got no relief. If you do this wrong, you know, you die on this hill. Excellent presentation. I love this. I love this slide right here. I love this one. If you're going to be a quality administrator and you're going to last, you can't get your feelings hurt. You have to be grown and do the right thing. Excellent presentation.
Dr. Lamb, we could quit our job and hire all these people to be consultants for us and go out on the road.
I tell you what, you know, if I didn't have to spend, if I didn't have to live out of a suitcase, I'd love to do it. I think we could help some people. I really do. We had, you know, this kind of brain power and motivation. See, you folks can make a difference in your district. And that's you know, I truly believe that. I think that this group, more than any other, you can have a big impact on your district.
I agree.
You just got to get in a position of leadership and, you know, hold it in the road and do the right thing, make smart decisions. As Laquetta said, you just make smart decisions, and you'll get there, and you'll be able to make some decisions that'll help kids. But you can't you can't die on the hill on something where you got no relief. The law's against you coming and going. You can't do that. So, have we got anybody from this group that would like to chime in? I like this slide on this one. You'll lose your house. I mean, and again, this is the best our groups have ever done on this case.
I agree.
We've had too many that got stuck on, well, it's the right thing to do. Well, but is it the legal thing? Doesn't matter. It's the right thing. No, you can't. You got to be more rational, systemic, more professional about how you go about looking at these kinds of things. Again, back to Laquetta, you can't use your heart. You got to use your head.
Dr. Lamb, one of the things that has impressed me is how confident all of you have done in your presentations and how knowledgeable you were. You didn't have to flounder around for what you needed to say from the very beginning that Ingrid started until right now, the last one. All of you have just been on point with everything.
Is Tracy here?
I think Tracy's not here, Dr. Lamb. She had a family emergency.
Okay, thank you. I love this one right here. I want somebody from this group to explain the Robin Hood effect. I love that. I mentioned it earlier. Somebody explain the Robin Hood effect for us. I'm sure everybody understands it.
Just very quickly, I'm pretty sure my group mates will chime in, but basically, what you said, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. One of the cliches, we kind of said every group had their little motto, but ours was, your ignorance of the law doesn't excuse the law.
Mm-hmm.
And his intent was well. We talked about how as a parent, if I read that letter, I would be super excited. I would think this is the right thing to do, not knowing that it is completely illegal. So that's what we mean when we say here, it seems fair, highly illegal. Robin Hood effect means he's taking money that he's already had, for other plans for, been mandated for, and he's going to give it in need. And parents are like, hey, that's going to help my child. This is an awesome idea. Let's support the superintendent, but it's completely illegal.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that didn't come up tonight was the fact that he was kind of saying, well, these other districts did it, so let's do it. And we mentioned that we're pretty sure superintendents in areas communicate, but if they all do something wrong, they're all going to share a cell.
That's exactly right.
That doesn't make it right.
When your mama said, if your friend jumped off the roof, would you jump off with them? That's a good legal standard right there. What I like about the term Robin Hood effect is we know Robin Hood took from the rich and gave to the poor, but we need to remember that that was against the law, that it was illegal for him to do that. We admire him for that, but you got to remember it was not legal. And so it's not just take from the rich and give to the poor, it's illegally take from the rich and give to the poor, as this group pointed out. Excellent presentation again. This one was very detailed as well. They actually went through and it was very well laid out, very well thought out, very succinct. I like this one as well. Very good job. We've got we've got Alan and Frank. I read theirs again right before we started, and they did a good job summarizing. Again, his heart was in the right place, but he just lost his house. That's exactly right. And they did this one. I like this one. On the ethical concerns. He wanted to be fair. He was trying to do the right thing, but the right thing unfortunately has to be the legal thing. So excellent job by this group. They focused a lot on the ethical concern, and I love that we looked at the ethics of the situation. They covered the legal part well, but they also delved into the ethical piece of it, which you have to do on all these. And then, of course, our last group that got to go first last time, Kayla, Diane, Stephanie, and Kenneth. Again, a stellar project from them. I love that all the things that they did. They laid it all out. What does it mean? Is it appropriate? And so cannot manipulate local, state, and federal monies. That's correct. And you would have to do that. I mean, if you move money, it's got to come from either federal, state, or local. You know you can't move federal money. Leandro said you can't move state money. And because you didn't get it approved up front from your county commissioners, who are the funding authority, you can't move local money either. And so this is a great point. This is a really good point. It can't be legal. No iteration of his plan, there's no way to figure out how to make it legal, because you either got to move state, local, or federal money, and it's illegal to move any of the three. So, excellent point from Diane, Stephanie, Kayla, and Kenna. We're right on our time here. Is there anything else that anybody else would like to add tonight? Is there any questions that I or Dr. Stedman have missed? If we did, email them to us in the after party here. Tremendous job. As good as I've ever seen, or better than I've ever seen as a group. Incredible, just incredible work. And just like tonight, we've got 30 of our 32 people with us tonight. Your dedication, staying with us, your work, you've got a chance to do something great. You've got a chance to do something great. You're the most advanced group we've ever had. I don't know why. Sometimes, when I was an elementary principal, sometimes you'd get a group that were just, you couldn't figure it out why they were so good. The next group that came along, they was all, eating boogers and rubbing glue in their hair. You just don't know why. But I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. I am most appreciative to have y'all this summer. It's been great so far, and I'm sure it will be. Okay. Look at Kareem. Kareem took his practice last week, made 180. He just killed it. You only needed a 150, he made a 180. That's got to be 99 percentile, 180 on the practice. He just killed it. We told you, once you get to this course and you get through the law part, you should go ahead and take your praxis if you need to take it for South Carolina, or if you need to take it for North Carolina for your curriculum instruction. You don't have to take it in North Carolina to get your administrative license. Your tax stream portfolio does that, as you all know. And so next week, we're going to talk about our competency folios, and we're going to get those things squared away. So don't stress about those. 2 weeks, we have our next case study. I think that's Jimmy and Willie. And Jimmy and Willie got a big win in the Supreme Court last week. You need to look at that ruling that came out, that was affirmed by the Supreme Court last week. That's directly on Jimmy and Willie, the case study in 2 weeks. The LGBTQ case study that we got, they got a big win. Jimmy and Willie's in 2 weeks, and so they got that case was reaffirmed by the Supreme Court this past week, which was a surprise, quite honestly. But so it's still the law of the land. So when we get to that one in 2 weeks, we'll work on competency folio next week. Thank you all for joining us. Excellent attendance tonight. Thank you, Dr. Stedman. I don't know if Dr. Tobias or Dr. Massengill made it in tonight, but they'll be with us next week when we talk about competency folios next week. So I'll see you all then. Thank you. Good night. I had a wonderful evening. It's the highlight of my week. I'll see you next week.